let's talk about the latest video by Jay Embry, shall we?
One thing at this point is for certain. They all resided at that home on King Road for a reason. And that reason certainly isn't what some people would like to consider, which is, they knew each other through their sororities, and that's how they all ended up living together. It's a good thought, but considering they weren't even in the same sororities,
Well, actually, that is how they came to reside at King Road. Maddie, Xana, Dylan, and Bethany were all in Pi Beta Phi. In fact, Bethany was Maddie's little in the sorority. And that house had been a live out for Pi Beta Phis for a couple years. Remember, Maddie had moved in the year before. She had moved in with other Pi Beta Phis. So then when there were openings, other Pi Beta Phis moved in, and then Maddie invited Kaylee, even though Kaylee was an Alpha Phi, because Kaylee was Maddie's best friend. So that's how they all came to be living there. Had nothing to do with parents or any drug interactions. So let's continue.
When they're installed properly and when they're used properly.
I believe what we're dealing with here, folks, is quite obvious. This is a safe house. This is a safe house, and it's been a safe house for some time. As you can see, the previous tenant was discussing the keypad locks with key. Those are very high quality, they showed in that video. On all of the bedroom doors in the King Road residence several years prior. That is an indication of a safe house.
What? A safe house. You're serious? No. A party house in the middle of Greek Row. A safe house. All because at one point in 2009, 2009.
That picture was the former tenant who moved out in 2009.
Because back in 2009, they had key code locks on the door. You think it was a safe house. First of all, safe houses, nobody knows they're a safe house. They're very well protected. People don't get invited over. Nobody can tell the address. It's not a party house near a college campus. That's not a safe house. Also, they didn't have key codes on the door anymore. Only the front door had a key code. The house had gone through a remodel since 2009. Now, see, it used to be rented by the room. So each individual room had a key code because they were rented as separate little apartment units. And then later, after it was remodeled, it was rented as a whole house. And then one person would basically kind of be in charge of the lease, and they would all pay that person the rent. And so it was switched to regular door locks. And you can see that in these photos and TikTok still shots from the last few years that Pi Beta Phis had lived in it. Okay, so now we've we've established they did not have individual keypad locks on the rooms anymore. Also, here's a FYI for you. A lot of people have keypad locks on their doors. They're not a safe house. Yeah, interesting, huh? So let's move on.
We see the father of one of the victims coming up a week early. Why did he come up? To check on his daughters. What did he do? Changed one of their locks.
Well, actually, he didn't come up a week early. It was Parents' Weekend at University of Idaho the weekend before, and then it was Parents' Weekend at Washington State University the weekend that the murders happened. So Jeffrey Kernodle was up there the weekend before for Xana, and then that next weekend he was up there for Jasmine. And also, he didn't change the lock. So after the murders, Jeff gave an interview where he said, "I saw her just a week before that and she changed a lot." Now, Kara heard him say she changed a lot and misunderstood that interview and thought he said he changed a lock. Now, Kara, I'm not going to say anything about her misunderstanding. The woman's been through so much. She doesn't deserve any of this stuff that's been heaped on her at the moment, especially not you accusing her of being a snitch. But that's what happened. She misunderstood when Jeff said that Xana had changed a lot, and she thought he had changed a lock. So let's continue.
Kaylee went home 2 weeks prior to this. Why? Because the heat was up.
Actually, no. Kaylee went home because she was almost done with school and was also already working for Extreme Networks. And there was an interview, and I can't find it now, where Steve said Kaylee had went back home because it was quieter because she was completing classes online and working. But I did find this interview with Christy where she talked about how Kaylee was working from home.
Not only was, Kaylee, her sister, Olivia and Kaylee were best friends. They talked every single day on the phone. They both worked from home. So they would literally put each other on FaceTime and work all day long. Literally like, hang on, I got to go make a sandwich, and, put each other on hold and whatnot. And they'd be doing their work, talking to each other all day long.
Yeah, she wasn't spending time at home for anything nefarious. It was just that I don't think she had honestly expected that Extreme Networks was going to keep her on like they did after the summer internship, and so she had signed on to live in that house, and then she tried working and doing school at the same time, and she found it was just easier and quieter back home than, of course, in a college house, where there's lots of noise and people in and out and roommates. So it wasn't because there was any imminent danger.
In my mind, the DNA on the knife sheath, it likely belongs to the person who gave Maddie that knife for protection. The DNA on the knife sheath, in my opinion, likely belongs to Jack Showalter. Now, I in no way think Jack Showalter had any part in the atrocity. I guess the real question is how did they take Jack Showalter's partial DNA sample and try to apply it to Brian Kohberger? I just gave you a 4-part series on how I believe they manipulated that DNA. I believe that DNA belongs to Jack Showalter.
Okay, so I see that you were listening to Tell It to Elle and then Nika's Neuro Nuggets with their, Nika stole from Elle, but the whole little thing about a Showalter living at an address that the Kohbergers had lived at in Pennsylvania. So now, suddenly you think that Jack Showalter's DNA was on the knife sheath. Well, first of all, again, I talked about it in my other video. If Maddie already had that knife in her possession, law enforcement would have already figured that out. They would have already known that, and they wouldn't have been doing all those warrants to see if somebody had purchased it, and then after they arrested Kohberger to see if Kohberger had purchased it. Okay. Also, Jack Showalter went and gave a DNA sample. So they already had his DNA to compare to rule him out. It obviously wasn't on the knife sheath. Also, what you seem to keep forgetting is, yes, while they use IgG to look back into family trees and look at history and see if they can find relatives where they get a distant DNA match, that isn't what they use to arrest a person, okay? They still have to get an STR match. So, if for some strange reason Jack Showalter or a relative of his was some sort of hit to Kohberger, if Jack's was on the sheath, they wouldn't have gotten an STR match to Kohberger, okay? You keep forgetting that they went and got the trash, had the dad's DNA, did an STR profile. The DNA on the sheath came back as could only belong to the male offspring of Michael Kohberger. Okay, well, that ain't Jack Showalter. And then when Kohberger was arrested, they took a buccal swab, and it came back a direct match to what was on the sheath. That wouldn't happen if it was somebody else's DNA on that sheath. So you keep skipping from the IgG just straight on, acting like they only use the IgG. No, the IgG is a tip. It helps you go in the right direction. But they can't arrest based just off IgG. They have to get STR. And they did. But also, just because somebody happened to live at an address doesn't mean they're related. But all of a sudden now you've switched to, oh, that's Showalter's DNA on the sheath. And I'm going to discuss that stupid address thing in another video. But I will give you props. I will give you credit for saying that Showalter did say, we're going to go get you some grubs, Maddie. He never said they're going to get you for that. That was, so props to you for at least being truthful and honest about that. But all the other BS in your video, no, miss me with that. And as usual, if there's something you would like me to cover, let me know.